I don't think it did help me see the church differently, and it helped me redefine men and women in a sense. I guess there's certain things that I do think were intrinsic and true about men and women that he does point out. What's up, how you doing? Chipper Go here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm gonna do like a really short quick review of Why Men Hate Going to Church by Murrow. 3 minutes or 5 minutes, because I could talk about this book for an hour, which is not what we're trying to do. Anyway, so Why Men Hate Going to Church. For a religion that started by a man and 12 disciples who are all men, Christianity has, in some twist of events, tend to be a religion for women and for women only. If you go to church, if you've been to church, if you've been to a church event, you will see that there's a huge proportion of women than there are men in comparison to other religions. So Murrow goes into this particular issue and tries to give us reasons as to why he thinks that is so, using some statistics and research that he's done. He's a pastor himself. So I think there are about 12 reasons that he gives. I'm just going to go into, I think, the 3 main reasons that, in a sense, come up again in the rest of the reasons in different shapes or form. Reason number 1 is that men hate going to church because the church lacks a compelling example of leadership, of proper leadership. He says that the Jesus in the church is very weak. He is very unnecessarily accommodating. He does whatever he's told. He does not speak his mind. There's a lot of emphasis on Jesus is love, Jesus is love, Jesus is love, Jesus is meek, Jesus is humble, Jesus is meek, Jesus is humble, Jesus is love, right? I don't see Jesus as having authority, at least when you're in the church so far. The church leans towards this type of Jesus who's so easy, I guess, for people to digest, because they are too afraid to encounter the Jesus that roars like a lion, the one who flips tables, the one who is a consuming fire, all those facets, which are a great combination for a strong leader. Basically, he's saying Jesus is weak so far. So men don't necessarily see that as a great example. And the men in the church are also very manipulative, very weak, very cynical, and they just lie, and men can, sniff that from a mile away, apparently. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 is that men hate going to church because it asks men to do very uncomfortable things. One of the things he gives as an example of is that singing out loud in the church. He goes into a bit of a history of hymns. Hymns in history generally, back in the day, generally were very focused on Jesus, on God, and who God was, what God has done, right? A contemporary worship, focuses more on me. I love the Lord. I am grateful. Me. That's not something that men technically like to sing out loud in a public space, maybe in the corners among themselves, but like in a public setting, that's not something they would like to. There's a bunch of other examples like ministries. Anyways, reason number 3, and I think this was his biggest argument throughout the book, is that the church emphasizes feminine traits, feminine values, and men, well, I guess they're men. They don't like to tap into their feminine traits. He says that most of the men who are actually in the church are very effeminate, in a sense, who are more in tune to that than their fellow counterparts who don't go to church. Basically, that's his main point, really, that the church is tailored to fit a woman. The singing, the dressing, the decor, the preaching, the services, everything is tailored to a woman. And men just don't like that. He actually even goes as far as to say that gay men actually are more comfortable in the church than non-gay men, with it straight men. So it was, I think, sexist, honestly, and very toxic. But if we're talking about stereotype men, stereotype women, I do see where he's coming from, but it was really hard, very cringeworthy for me to read and sit through. His prescriptions also were just like, no. I don't think his prescriptions were biblical. I don't think that they were even helpful. He talks about the style of preaching, the decor, the phrasing in the church. I was just like, yeah, but he does say that this is a technical book. It's not talking about the spiritual aspects of what the issue is or the spiritual battle of what the issue is. It's talking about technical, surface level of the issue. So I understand, I guess, in a sense, what she's going for, but it was hard. It was quite uncomfortable for me to read, very hard, and just like, no, I don't agree with this. I don't think it did help me see the church differently, and it helped me redefine men and women in a sense. I guess there's certain things that I do think were intrinsic and true about men and women that he does point out, because I guess we are different. So I do think that, yeah, it was helpful in that sense, but the majority of the book was just like, I don't know. But I would recommend it, honestly. I do think that everybody should, in a sense, read, especially if you go to church. I do think that you should read it. It's really going to help you think through a lot of things and question some of the things that you might think are okay. I do think he makes a very great argument for the music and as well as for children's ministry and what that does that to the church setup and to the man and to the woman. So yeah, that's David Murrow, Why Men Hate Church. I'm pretty sure this is going to be longer than 5 minutes, so I guess this is just an official review of the book. Yeah, that's Why Men Hate Going to Church. Thank you for watching. Bye.